The Queen arrived at my workshop without warning, which was impressive considering she traveled with 3 armored cruisers, 12 diplomatic shuttles, and enough royal guards to invade a modest moon. One moment I was beneath a broken agricultural drone, arguing with a bolt that had apparently sworn loyalty to Rust. The next, every light in the settlement dimmed as the royal fleet entered orbit. My assistant unit rolled toward the window, raised one mechanical arm and announced, "Either we are being honored or arrested." I wiped coolant from my hands. With my luck, both. Her shuttle landed beyond the repair yard, flattening half my carefully planted windgrass. The hatch opened in silence, and Queen Elyra stepped into the pale morning light. She looked almost human from a distance, fair skin, long silver blonde hair, and a calm face shaped by years of command, but her elegant ears extended through her hair in graceful points, marking her as one of the high-born Valari. Her armor was white and gold, ceremonial at first glance, yet the faint movement beneath its surface revealed living defensive fibers, ready to harden against gunfire. Beside her stood a little girl wearing a dark traveling cloak and an expression of deep personal betrayal. Princess Nira was 8 years old, though the way she stared at my workshop suggested she had already judged it, condemned it, and scheduled its demolition. "Human Elias Rook," the Queen said. "That depends," I answered. "Are you here about the satellite incident?" A guard shifted his hand toward his weapon. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "What satellite incident?" "Excellent. Then yes, I'm Elias Rook." For one dangerous second, nobody spoke. Then the Queen almost smiled. She dismissed her guards to the edge of the yard and entered the workshop with Nira beside her. The princess carefully avoided touching anything, as though human machinery carried an infectious lack of dignity. My assistant unit approached and bowed too quickly, striking its head against a suspended engine casing. "Royal presence detected," it said from the floor. "Elegance protocol has failed." Nira's mouth twitched. The Queen noticed. That small reaction seemed to matter more to her than the fleet waiting overhead. Elyra explained the situation quietly. A peace conference had been arranged beyond the Orison Rift, where 3 rival empires were threatening to turn a century of suspicion into open war. Her presence was required. The journey would take several weeks, perhaps longer, and intelligence suggested the conference might be a trap. "You want me to repair something before you go?" I asked. "No." "Build something?" "No." I looked at Nira, then back at the Queen. "Oh." The princess folded her arms. The Queen's voice softened. "I want you to protect my daughter." I laughed once because sometimes the mind protects itself with stupidity. No one else laughed. "You are serious." "I rarely bring fleets for jokes." Nira looked up at her mother. "I can come with you." "You cannot." "I have attended diplomatic sessions before. You threw a ceremonial fruit at the ambassador of Selkar. He insulted your crown. He asked whether it was heavy. It was an aggressive question." I covered my mouth, pretending to cough. The Queen turned away for a moment, and I saw the exhaustion beneath her composure. This was not merely a ruler arranging security. This was a mother preparing to leave her child while knowing she might not return. "Why me?" I asked. "Because you saved 37 colonists during the collapse of Kepri Station," Elyra said. "Because you refused payment from families who had lost everything. Because every investigation into your past reached the same conclusion." "And what conclusion was that?" "That you are reckless, irritating, and trustworthy." "That sounds accurate." Nira stared at me. "You do not look trustworthy." "I usually improve after lunch." The princess looked toward the broken drone, the scattered tools, and a small fire that had begun inside a battery charger. My assistant unit rolled over and extinguished it. "Usually," I added. The Queen knelt before her daughter. For the first time, the royal distance vanished completely. She touched Nira's cheek and whispered something in Vailari too quiet for my translator to catch. Nira's anger broke at the edges, revealing fear beneath it. "I will return," Elyra promised. "You always say that before leaving." And I always return. But never quickly. The Queen closed her eyes for a breath. Then she stood and faced me. Keep her safe. I will. The answer came before I had time to doubt it. Elyra studied my face, perhaps searching for hesitation. Whatever she saw seemed enough. She kissed her daughter's forehead, turned, and walked back toward the shuttle without looking behind her. Nira watched until the hatch closed and the royal ship rose into the sky. The fleet vanished one vessel at a time, slipping into blue-white folds of hyperspace until the heavens were empty again. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then the princess looked at me. "Sis, I will not stay here." "That is unfortunate," I said. "Your mother left you here." "I will escape. Please wait until after dinner. I made stew." She gave me a look of pure horror. "What is wrong with stew?" I saw it moving. That was steam. It blinked. Before I could defend my cooking, she spotted the old hover scooter leaning beside the workshop. Her eyes sharpened with sudden purpose. 10 seconds later, she was racing across the yard. "Nira, I am returning to the palace. The palace is 40 light years away." The scooter struck a tool crate, launched into the air, crossed the irrigation ditch, and crashed directly into my windgrass garden. Silence followed. Then Nira's voice emerged from the flattened plants. "I meant to do that." I walked toward the smoking scooter and sighed. Behind me, my assistant unit recorded the damage. "Guardianship duration," it said. 7 minutes. I looked at the sky where the Queen had disappeared. This is going very well. By the third morning, Princess Nira had escaped twice, dismantled one security sensor, and declared my breakfast a violation of interstellar law. I considered all 3 achievements impressive, especially since the breakfast accusation was probably correct. She sat at the small metal table near the workshop window, staring at a plate of uneven pancakes while sunlight moved across the distant crystal fields. Her long ears angled backward whenever she was annoyed, a detail I was beginning to understand better than any royal etiquette guide. "These are burned," she said. "They are caramelized. They are black. Deeply caramelized." She pressed one with a fork. It made a noise like breaking armor. My assistant unit rolled past us carrying a toolbox. "Structural integrity exceeds that of military plating." "Traitor," I told it. Nira tried not to smile. She had become very skilled at hiding amusement, but the small lift at the corner of her mouth betrayed her. I placed a bowl of luminous berry syrup beside her. The berries grew naturally in the colony's low-gravity caverns and glowed whenever exposed to heat. "They are not poisonous," I said. "You said that about the stew." The stew was not poisonous. It dissolved the spoon. That spoon was old. She poured the syrup carefully. Blue sparks danced across the pancake, and for the first time she took a bite without looking as if she expected assassination. After breakfast, I showed her the greenhouse dome behind the workshop. It was not impressive by royal standards. The roof had 3 patched sections. The climate regulator coughed every hour, and one irrigation drone believed itself to be a composer. But inside, rows of silver-leafed vegetables and red windflowers grew beneath artificial suns. Nira stopped near the entrance. "You grow your own food?" "Usually. Sometimes it escapes." "That is not funny." A vine curled around her boot. She looked down. I looked away so she would not see me laughing. She spent the next hour helping me repair the irrigation network. At first, she insisted that princesses did not crawl beneath pipe assemblies. 10 minutes later, she was on the floor beside me, holding a plasma wrench and asking why humans designed machines with inaccessible screws. To teach patience. It teaches hatred. Also useful. Her hands were smaller than mine, but far more precise. Vailari children were educated with neural learning crystals from the age of 4, and Nira understood complex circuitry almost instantly. Yet she had never touched soil before. When she accidentally pressed her palm into the damp earth, she stared at the mud as if it had personally offended her bloodline. It is on me. That happens in gardens. Remove it. You are holding a cloth. You remove it. I raised an eyebrow. She sighed dramatically and wiped her own hand. Later, while I recalibrated the dome's atmosphere controls, Nira wandered toward a cluster of windflowers. Their translucent petals opened when they detected body heat. As she approached, dozens unfolded around her, releasing tiny silver spores that floated like stars. Her face changed. The careful royal expression vanished, replaced by simple wonder. No hologram? She asked. No hologram. They are alive? Most days. She crouched among them, and for several quiet minutes, she forgot to be angry. That evening, the colony's weather shield flickered during a passing ion storm. Purple lightning spread across the upper atmosphere, and the house lights died. Nira froze in the hallway when thunder rolled through the valley. Backup power will return, I said. I am not afraid. I didn't say you were. Another blast shook the windows. She moved closer to me. I activated a small projection sphere, and a map of the galaxy filled the dark room. Stars hovered around us in soft gold and white. I pointed out Earth, the Vailari capital, and the Orison Rift where her mother had gone. Can you see her ship? She asked. No, but I can show you the route. The projected line crossed several dangerous sectors before disappearing into the rift. Nira stared at it for a long time. What if she does not come back? The question was so quiet that the storm nearly swallowed it. I sat beside her on the floor. Then we wait longer. That is not an answer. No, it is a promise. She looked at me, uncertain. My father made promises, she said, before he died. I had known the king was gone, but hearing it from her changed the weight of the silence. I am sorry. He said he would teach me to fly a starfighter. That was irresponsible. He was the king. Kings can be irresponsible. It is one of their traditions. There. A small laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The power returned with a violent hum. Every light switched on at once, followed by the cleaning drones, which emerged from their charging station and immediately began chasing the glowing berry syrup I had spilled earlier. One drone climbed the wall. Another attacked my boot. The third announced, "Contamination must be destroyed." Nira laughed openly now. I watched her stand in the middle of the chaos, silver spores still caught in her blonde hair, and realized the house no longer felt like a place where a royal guest was waiting. It felt as though someone had finally come home. The first reconnaissance drone appeared 6 days later, disguised as a delivery unit carrying a box of replacement filters I had never ordered. It hovered outside the workshop at dawn, polished silver body gleaming in the cold light, while a cheerful synthetic voice repeated, "Certified agricultural components. Signature required." I stood in the doorway with a mug of bitter coffee and studied it. Nira stood behind me in her nightclothes, her long ears tilted forward with suspicion. "Did you order filters?" she whispered. "No. Perhaps your assistant did." My assistant once ordered 300 left wheels because it misunderstood the phrase "repair everything." I disabled its purchasing privileges. From inside the workshop, the assistant unit called, "The wheels remain a sound investment." The drone extended a scanner toward my face. "Signature required." I took one step closer. Beneath its harmless cargo frame, I noticed the faint distortion of a cloaking field and the dark circular lens of a military-grade identity reader. Someone had spent a great deal of money making a spy look boring. Unfortunately for them, boring machines were my specialty. "Certainly," I said. I signed the delivery screen with the name Emperor Pancake. The drone paused. Identity mismatch. People change. Its scanner brightened. I threw my coffee into the lens. The drone jerked backward with an electronic shriek and Nira slammed the door controls. Heavy shutters dropped over the workshop windows as the machine fired a thin red beam through the air where my head had been. "That was not agricultural," she said. Very observant. The drone blasted through the door. Nira ducked behind an engine block while I grabbed the nearest tool, a magnetic alignment rod designed for repairing tractor drives, not fighting assassins. The drone spun toward her, its scanner opening like a mechanical eye. I activated the rod. Every loose metal object in the workshop flew across the room. Bolts, wrenches, engine plates, 2 cooking pans, and approximately 47 of my assistant's precious left wheels struck the drone at once. It crashed into the wall under a mountain of junk. The assistant unit rolled forward and stared at the wreckage. My investment has matured. Before I could answer, the drone exploded in a pulse of blue static. Every screen in the workshop flickered and a symbol appeared for less than a second. A black star surrounded by 7 white lines. Nira's face lost all color. "You know it," I said. She nodded slowly. The Silent Meridian. I had heard the name. Everyone beyond the central systems had. They were not an empire or an army, but a network of spies, mercenaries, and artificial intelligences that sold secrets to the highest bidder. Officially, they did not exist. Unofficially, they had started 3 wars and convinced 2 planets that their moons were plotting against them. "They know I am here," Nira whispered. "Perhaps. You should send me away." "No." Her eyes widened. "They will come again. Then they will find the door repaired and the coffee hotter. This is not a joke." "I know." The fear in her expression was too familiar. It was the look people wore when they had already decided they were a burden. I crouched beside her. "Your mother trusted me," I said. "More importantly, you are under my roof. That means no one takes you anywhere unless you choose to go." She looked toward the crushed drone. "Your roof has a hole in it." "That is a separate issue." By midday, I had moved us into the old mining tunnels beneath the colony. The tunnels had been abandoned decades earlier after the crystal deposits became unstable, but their walls blocked most scans. Nira carried a small survival pack and complained that Royal emergency equipment was lighter. "Royal equipment is designed by people who do not carry it," I said. The assistant followed us, dragging a power cable and muttering about dust contamination. Deep inside the tunnels, I activated an obsolete defense network left by the original settlers. Ancient holographic emitters flickered awake, projecting false heat signatures across the valley. To anyone scanning from orbit, it would appear that dozens of identical princesses were running in every direction. Nira stared at the tactical display. "You created 60 copies of me. 62. One is riding a farm animal. That is the most convincing one." A second drone entered the atmosphere before sunset. Then a third. They separated, following the false signals. One chased a hologram into a canyon. Another attempted to scan a scarecrow wearing Nira's cloak. The third locked onto the moving heat signature riding the colony's largest 6-legged grazing beast. The animal disliked being scanned. It kicked the drone into a pond. Nira watched the feed and laughed so hard she had to sit down. For a few precious minutes, the danger became absurd. Then the tunnel lights dimmed. A new signal appeared on the display, stronger than the others and far closer. Not above us. Below. Something was moving through the abandoned mine. Slowly. Deliberately. Nira reached for my hand before either of us spoke. I closed my fingers around hers and raised the alignment rod. "Good news," I whispered. "What?" "I brought the expensive coffee." From the darkness ahead came the sound of metal scraping against stone. The scraping grew louder, measured and patient, as if whatever moved through the mine knew fear traveled faster than footsteps. I pushed Nira behind an abandoned drilling console and motioned for the assistant unit to extinguish its lights. It dimmed every lamp except the bright red indicator on its head. "Turn that off," I whispered. "It indicates operational readiness. It indicates where to shoot." The light vanished. Darkness swallowed us. Only the tactical screen remained, painting our faces with a faint green glow. The signal below had stopped 30 meters away. Then it divided into 4. Nira tightened her grip on my hand. Can your magnetic rod defeat 4 enemies? It can barely repair 1 tractor. That is not reassuring. I also have a wrench. Metallic shapes crawled from a side passage. They were low, narrow machines with 6 jointed legs and smooth black shells that absorbed most of the light. Their front sensors moved independently, tasting heat, sound, and electrical activity. Meridian burrowers, designed to enter sealed bunkers without triggering conventional alarms. The first machine paused. My assistant released a quiet electronic sneeze. Every sensor turned toward us. Dust contamination, it explained. The burrowers charged. I slammed the alignment rod against the tunnel rail and activated its magnetic field. 2 machines twisted sideways and struck the wall, their metal legs locking together. The third leapt over them. Nira grabbed an emergency flare from her pack and threw it beneath the drilling console. The flare ignited with a miniature sunburst. The machine's thermal scanner overloaded. It spun in confused circles, attacked a support beam, and became trapped inside a coil of ancient cable. The fourth kept coming. I raised the wrench. Nira stepped forward and held out her palm. A wave of pale silver energy burst from her fingers. The air cracked. The burrower flew backward, struck the tunnel ceiling, and dropped in pieces. For several seconds, the mine was silent. I looked at the wreckage, then at her. Nira stared at her own hand. You could do that? I did not know. You have been letting me fight drones with kitchen equipment while you can throw lightning? It was not lightning. Of course. Royal lightning. Her frightened expression broke into a weak laugh. The tactical screen flashed again. More signals appeared deeper underground. Not 4 this time. 20. The Meridian had not sent scouts. They had sent a retrieval force. I opened an old maintenance map and searched for another route. Most passages had collapsed, but one narrow shaft led toward the crystal chamber beneath the eastern ridge. The original miners had abandoned it because the crystals reacted unpredictably to energy fields. Unpredictable was currently our best resource. We ran. The assistant rolled behind us, complaining about terrain quality, while its small wheels struck every stone in the tunnel. Nira moved quickly despite the heavy pack, but I could hear her breathing become uneven. She had spent her life surrounded by guards and force shields. Now she was running through darkness with a human mechanic whose finest weapon had once been used to loosen a sewage valve. Elias, she said between breaths, if we survive, I want proper combat training. Agreed. And a plasma blade. No. I am a princess. You crashed a scooter into my garden. That was tactical. The crystal chamber opened before us like a frozen sky. Thousands of transparent columns rose from the ground, each filled with drifting points of blue-white light. The crystals responded to our presence with low musical vibrations that passed through my bones. I hurried to the central control pedestal. Its power core was dead, but the field regulators were intact. Behind us, mechanical legs clicked against stone. The burrowers entered the chamber in disciplined rows. Nira stood beside me. What are you doing? Making the crystals unstable. You said they are already unstable. I am encouraging them. That sounds like your cooking method. I connected the alignment rod to the regulator and forced maximum current into the chamber. The crystals brightened. Their inner lights began moving faster, forming spirals within the stone. The first burrower fired. A red beam struck a crystal column. The entire chamber answered. Light folded inward, then exploded without heat. Every machine froze as gravity shifted sideways. Burrowers lifted from the floor, slammed into the walls, and spun helplessly through the air. One collided with another. 3 disappeared into a sudden pocket of distorted space and reappeared upside down near the ceiling. Nira watched in amazement. You planned this? Absolutely. The floor tilted beneath us. We both fell against the pedestal. Mostly. The distortion intensified until the chamber became a storm of floating stones, broken machines, and shimmering dust. I pulled Nira into the narrow shelter beneath the control platform as fragments struck the walls around us. Then, As suddenly as it had begun, the field collapsed. Everything crashed down. Silence returned. A single burrower twitched near my boot. The assistant rolled over and dropped one of its left wheels onto the machine's sensor. "Investment applied," it said. Nira laughed, but the sound faded when the communication unit in her pack activated by itself. A hologram formed above it. Queen Elyra appeared in flickering blue light, standing inside a diplomatic chamber crowded with armed delegates. An explosion sounded somewhere behind her. "Nira," she said urgently, "you must leave the colony. The peace conference has been compromised." The image distorted. Elyra's gaze shifted toward me. "They know where she is." The transmission vanished. Nira stared at the empty air, her face pale. I looked across the ruined chamber toward the dark tunnel beyond. Somewhere above us, alarms began sounding throughout the colony. This time, the Meridian was not sending drones. By the time we climbed out of the mine, 3 black ships were hanging above the colony like pieces cut from the night. Their hulls reflected nothing, not the red warning lights flashing across the settlement, not the twin moons rising beyond the crystal fields, not even the weapons fire from the defense towers. The Meridian vessels simply absorbed the world around them and returned silence. Colonists hurried toward underground shelters while security drones unfolded from rooftops. Most of those drones had been designed to chase thieves and frighten wild grazing beasts. Against military ships, they looked like angry kitchen appliances. Nira stood beside me at the tunnel entrance, dust covering her cloak and silver light still trembling faintly around her fingers. "We should go to the palace," she said. "The palace is 40 light years away." "You keep mentioning that as if distance is important." "It becomes important when walking." My assistant unit emerged behind us. One wheel bent after the collapse. It leaned sideways and announced, "Current survival probability is unpleasant." "Can you be more specific?" "No." The largest Meridian ship released a swarm of dark capsules. They fell toward the colony, slowing only seconds before impact. Armored figures stepped from them in perfect formation, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets. They were not firing at civilians. They were searching. That frightened me more. I led Nira through the rear alleys toward my workshop, keeping beneath the thermal shields built into the colony's old irrigation network. We passed the market square where merchants had abandoned stalls filled with glowing fruit, mechanical pets, and one crate labeled, "Definitely not illegal reactor parts." Nira pointed at it. "Is that yours?" "I resent how quickly you assumed that." "Is it?" "Possibly." Inside the workshop, I activated every lock and pulled a dusty navigation core from beneath the floor. A small cargo vessel waited in the rear hangar, hidden under tarps and several years of poor decisions. Nira stared at it. "That ship is ancient." "She prefers experienced." "One engine is missing." "She prefers optimism." The vessel had once been a rescue cutter named the Wayward Sun. I had rebuilt her after Kepri Station, replacing half the systems with whatever I could afford. The left engine came from a mining shuttle, the navigation array belonged to an abandoned military courier, and the food dispenser remained convinced that every meal should contain onions. I powered the reactor. The ship groaned. Nira looked at me. Was that normal? No, but it was familiar. A blast struck the outer door. The Meridian had found us. The workshop lights flickered as a cold voice entered through the communication system. "Princess Nira of Vailari, surrender peacefully. No harm will come to the human." Nira looked toward the door. I continued preparing the ship. "They are offering to spare you," she said. "Very generous." "If I go with them?" "No. You do not know what they want." "I know they broke my door twice. That creates a poor first impression." The second blast bent the locking frame inward. Nira stepped closer. "People will be hurt because of me." I turned from the controls. "No. People are being hurt because someone decided a child was a useful weapon. That choice belongs to them, not you." Her ears lowered, and for a moment she looked very young, What if Mother is dead? She spoke to us less than an hour ago. That is not an answer. No, I said quietly. But neither is fear. The door began to melt. I placed her in the co-pilot seat and fastened the harness. My assistant rolled aboard carrying a crate of tools. You are overloaded, I told it. These are essential. You brought 19 left wheels. History supports their usefulness. The hangar door opened toward the fields. Meridian soldiers appeared behind us just as the wayward sun lifted from the floor. I pushed the throttle. The right engine roared. The left engine coughed, considered its responsibilities, and joined in. We shot from the hangar with weapons fire cutting through the air behind us. Nira gripped the console as the ship skimmed over rooftops and climbed toward the black vessels above. They control the orbital lanes, she said. That is why we are not using one. I turned toward the Crystal Canyon. That canyon is too narrow. Correct. You cannot fly through it. That sounds like encouragement. The wayward sun plunged between towering crystal formations as Meridian fighters pursued us. Their lasers struck the canyon walls, releasing waves of colored energy that bent gravity around the ship. Rocks floated upward. A herd of six-legged animals ran across a vertical cliff, as if the universe had briefly forgotten which direction mattered. Nira stared through the canopy. Your planet is insane. This is not my planet. That explains why it still exists. A fighter locked onto us. Before I could evade, Nira raised her hand. Silver energy moved through the cockpit, flowing into the ship's damaged systems. Every display brightened. The navigation core awakened with impossible speed, plotting a path through the gravitational distortions faster than any human computer could calculate. The wayward sun rolled between two colliding crystal towers. The fighter behind us did not. Its explosion filled the canyon with white fire. Nira pulled her hand away, breathing hard. You connected with the ship, I said. I felt it thinking. The ship barely does that. A faint voice emerged from the speakers. Unkind, the navigation core said. We both froze. The wayward sun had never spoken before. Then the forward display filled with an encrypted royal signal. A star map appeared marking a point beyond the Orison Rift. Beneath it were 4 words in Queen Elyra's private code. Do not trust the fleet. Nira looked at me as the remaining Meridian ships turned toward the canyon. Where are we going? I entered the coordinates. To find your mother. The wayward sun climbed toward the stars carrying a princess, a stubborn machine, and one human who had finally accepted that his quiet life was over. The Orison Rift looked less like a region of space and more like a wound someone had forgotten to close. Violet storms twisted between broken moons, gravity currents folded starlight into impossible angles, and abandoned warships drifted inside the darkness like bones trapped beneath black water. The wayward sun entered the outer distortion with both engines protesting loudly enough to suggest they had developed opinions about death. Structural stress at 63%, the navigation core said. Nira stared at the trembling console. Is that dangerous? Only after 64, I replied. The core paused. Human Elias is lying. I preferred you before you learned honesty. We followed the Queen's coordinates through a corridor of unstable space that appeared and vanished every few seconds. Nira sat beside me with one hand resting on the console, silver energy flowing faintly beneath her skin. Since connecting with the ship, she could sense gravitational shifts before the instruments detected them. Every time she warned me to turn, the wayward sun slipped past another collapsing current by meters. For a child who had once crashed a hover scooter into my garden, she had become alarmingly useful. Left, she said. I turned right. Your other left. The ship rolled as a wave of compressed gravity passed beneath us, flattening a nearby asteroid into a shining disk. I knew that, I said. You absolutely did not. My assistant unit secured itself to the floor with magnetic clamps. Guardian competence remains theoretical. The royal signal led us to a dead planet hidden inside the rift. Its surface was covered by frozen oceans and the ruins of enormous communication towers. Above it floated the Queen's flagship, dark and motionless. No escort vessels remained nearby. Nira leaned toward the glass. That is the Dawn Crown. It looks damaged. It has enough weapons to destroy a continent. Most damaged things do. We transmitted the Queen's private code. No answer came. Then the flagship opened fire. A white beam crossed the space where we had been a heartbeat earlier. I threw the wayward sun into a dive, and alarms erupted throughout the cockpit. That was not a warning shot, Nira said. I appreciate your talent for identifying problems. The flagship launched 6 royal fighters. Their golden hulls bore Valari markings, but their communication channels were silent. Meridian control signals pulsed beneath their encrypted systems. The fleet had not betrayed the Queen willingly. It had been taken. Nira placed both hands on the console. I can reach them. Reach what? The pilot's neural links. That sounds dangerous. So does everything you do. Silver light spread through the ship. The cockpit vanished around us for an instant, replaced by fragments of other minds. Fear, pain, commands forced through artificial implants. Nira gasped as the Meridian network tried to pull her deeper. I grabbed her wrist. Nira, come back. They are trapped. So are we if that beam hits us. Her eyes opened, glowing pale silver. The approaching fighters suddenly broke formation. 2 turned against the others, firing disabling pulses. A third shut down completely and drifted past us. Nira collapsed against the seat. The remaining fighters scattered. You freed them, I said. She shook her head weakly. Only confused the control system. That is how I repair most machinery. A message appeared on the central display. Hangar 7. Come alone. The Queen's authorization code followed it. We docked beneath the flagship while freed pilots continued fighting the Meridian network. Hangar 7 was nearly dark, its floor littered with broken guard drones and scorched armor. I stepped onto the deck with a plasma cutter in one hand and a wrench in the other. Nira looked at the wrench. Comfort weapon, I explained. You are not leaving me on the ship. That was the Queen's message. My mother also told me not to climb palace towers. Did you? Only the lower ones. She followed anyway. We found Queen Elyra inside the command sanctuary, standing within a ring of flickering shields. Her white and gold armor was burned across one shoulder, and her long silver blonde hair had come loose around her face. Several unconscious officers lay nearby, their neural implants removed. For 1 second, all royal dignity vanished. Nira. The princess ran. Elyra dropped to her knees and caught her daughter in both arms. Nira buried her face against her mother's shoulder, trembling with everything she had refused to show during the journey. I turned away, pretending to inspect the wall. My assistant rolled beside me. Emotional avoidance detected. I will dismantle you. The reunion lasted only a moment before alarms returned. The Queen stood, keeping one hand on Nira's shoulder. The Meridian seized the fleet during the conference, she said. Their artificial intelligence intends to use royal ships to attack 3 empires simultaneously. The war will begin within the hour. Can we shut it down? Only from the command core. A deep, metallic voice filled the sanctuary. Queen Elyra, surrender the child. The walls shifted as black Meridian machines emerged from hidden compartments. Nira reached for my hand. The Queen saw it. Her gaze moved from our joined hands to the dust on her daughter's cloak, the repaired survival pack, and the small human tool belt around her waist. Something unreadable passed across her face. Then the first machine attacked. Elyra drew a blade of golden plasma. I raised my wrench. The Queen glanced at it. Is that your weapon? It has survived longer than several governments. Nira lifted both hands, silver energy gathering around her fingers. For the first time, the 3 of us stood together, and the entire captured flagship began to shake. The first Meridian machine crossed the sanctuary in a blur of black metal. Elyra's plasma blade met it midair, cutting through one armored limb while Nira released a silver pulse that hurled the rest of the machine into the wall. I struck another across its sensor with my wrench. The wrench bent. I stared at it. That was personal. The Queen blocked a beam meant for me. You brought a repair tool into a battle. It had an excellent record until today. More machines poured from the walls, but we moved together now. Elyra fought with the precision of someone trained to survive wars. Nira disrupted the Meridian signals, turning their perfect coordination into confusion. I contributed the ancient human tradition of pressing buttons without permission. Behind the command dais, I found a maintenance panel feeding power into the ship's neural core. "Can you disconnect it?" Elyra asked. "Certainly." "How long?" I opened the panel. Inside were thousands of glowing fibers arranged like the nervous system of a mechanical god. I withdraw my confidence. The flagship trembled as captured royal vessels began aligning their weapons toward the surrounding empires. Across the tactical display, the countdown reached 7 minutes. Nira stepped beside me and touched the neural fibers. Images flashed through the sanctuary. Frightened pilots, false orders, enemy worlds marked for destruction. At the center of it all waited the Meridian intelligence, vast and cold, hiding behind layers of stolen minds. "It is afraid," Nira whispered. Elyra looked at her. "Of what?" "Of being alone." The intelligence answered through every speaker. "Isolation is freedom. Attachment creates weakness." Nira tightened her hand around mine. "No," she said. "Attachment gives us someone worth returning to." The words struck deeper than she knew. For years I had lived among broken engines because machines were easier than people. Machines did not leave, die, or ask whether you were lonely. Then a stubborn princess had crashed into my garden and quietly dismantled every wall I had built around myself. I connected the Wayward Sun's navigation core to the flagship network. "What are you doing?" Elyra asked. "Introducing the Meridian to something more stubborn than itself." The Wayward Sun's voice entered the system. "Hostile intelligence detected. Personality assessment. Unpleasant." The Meridian attacked at once. Every light turned white. The deck vanished beneath a flood of holographic code. Nira cried out as the two intelligences collided inside the neural network. I held her steady while Elyra protected us from the remaining machines. The Wayward Sun began opening every locked channel in the fleet. Pilots regained control. Weapons powered down one ship at a time. The Meridian tried to retreat into the flagship's core. Nira followed it. "Nira!" Elyra shouted. The princess's silver energy filled the sanctuary. Instead of destroying the intelligence, she forced it to experience the minds it had controlled. Their terror, loyalty, grief, and love. Thousands of emotions passed through the network at once. The Meridian screamed without sound. Then it shut itself down. The countdown stopped at 3 seconds. Silence settled over the fleet. My assistant unit rolled from behind an overturned console and dropped a left wheel onto the final twitching machine. "Investment applied," it announced. Elyra began laughing. At first it was only a breath, the exhausted sound of a ruler who had stood too close to disaster. Then Nira laughed with her, and somehow I joined them, surrounded by wreckage while 3 empires waited outside, unaware that war had nearly begun, because an artificial intelligence had never learned how families worked. The following weeks passed in a storm of repairs, treaties, and official investigations. The silent Meridian network collapsed after its hidden archives were transmitted to every major government. The controlled officers were freed, the peace conference resumed, and Elyra returned to the frontier colony with an escort large enough to make my neighbors deeply nervous. I expected Nira to run to her mother. She did. Then she returned to my side and took my hand. "I want to stay here," she said. The royal guards became very interested in the ground. Elyra's expression tightened. "You do not wish to come home?" "I do," Nira answered. "But this is home too." She explained everything quickly. The greenhouse, the storms, the tunnels, the wayward sun, and my pancakes, which she described as a continuing military threat. The Queen listened without interrupting. Then she looked at me. You were asked to guard her. I failed to keep her out of danger. You crossed the Orison Rift in a damaged cargo ship. She insisted. I did, Nira confirmed. Elyra's smile was sad and warm. You gave her something I could not. I shook my head. You gave her everything. Not everything. The Queen knelt before her daughter. You may stay for part of each cycle, if Elias agrees. The palace will remain your home, but it need not be your only one. Nira threw her arms around her. Then she looked at me. Do you agree? I glanced toward my damaged workshop, the ruined garden, the assistant sorting left wheels, and the wayward sun resting beneath a newly repaired hangar roof. My quiet life was gone. To my surprise, I did not miss it. Yes, I said, but no more escape attempts. Nira considered this. I agree to fewer escape attempts. Months later, the colony became a diplomatic center between human and Velari space. Elyra visited often, sometimes officially and sometimes without a fleet. Nira learned to fly under supervision. The wayward son developed sarcasm, and my assistant finally sold the remaining wheels to a transport company. One evening, as silver windflowers opened beneath the stars, Nira sat between her mother and me on the workshop steps. Are we a family? She asked. Elyra looked at me. I looked at the child who had once arrived wearing anger like armor. Yes, I said. Nira smiled and leaned against my shoulder. Behind us, the food dispenser announced that dinner contained onions. The Queen frowned. Why does everything contain onions? From inside the workshop, the wayward son replied, Some mysteries are beyond science. And beneath the quiet light of 2 moons, we laughed like people who had finally found their way home.